comentarista de Fox News, CNN y The New York Post, ha informado a funcionarios del gobierno en el Departamento de Estado de los Estados Unidos de América, la Casa Blanca, el Pentágono y el Parlamento del Reino Unido sobre cuestiones de guerra simétrica y derechos humanos. En 2020, fue nombrada entre los 40 principales defensores mundiales de Israel y recibió el premio canadiense contra el antisemitismo y defensora de los derechos de los niños. Con ustedes, Brooke Goldstein.
Good afternoon, Mexico City. What an honor it is to be here with you today. I absolutely love this town. You have an incredible Jewish community. Thank you so much for having me today. So, my name is Brooke Goldstein. I am the founder and executive director of the Lawfare Project, which is the world's foremost Jewish civil rights litigation fund and public interest law firm. I run a network, thank you. I run a network of over 900 lawyers and 36 major international law firms. And over the last 7 years, we have filed over 80 groundbreaking lawsuits on behalf of Jewish communities around the world and have had millions of dollars worth of pro bono legal support donated to the Jewish community. But the truth is, I did not start my career in law. Rather, I started it as a filmmaker. And when I was 24 years old, at great personal risk to my own safety, I traveled to Jenin, Ramallah, and Tulkarm and Nablus. And I did so to secure first-hand interviews with leaders of designated terrorist groups such as Hamas, the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades, and the Islamic Jihad. I went into schools run by these terrorist groups, and I saw firsthand how they indoctrinate these children towards hate, recruit them for terrorist activities, including as child soldiers, as civilian human shields, and of course, as suicide homicide bombers. I interviewed families of suicide bombers, and I went into Israeli prisons, and I interviewed children who were arrested for carrying out violent attacks. I did this to expose what I believe to be the greatest human rights violation of all time, and which is also, by the way, the root cause of the conflict that we have in the Middle East. And that is the state-sponsored, illegal indoctrination and recruitment of innocent Muslim children towards violence. That is hate education. I released my film under the title, The Making of a Martyr, and we ended up winning the 2006 Audience Choice Award for Best Film at the United Nations Documentary Film Festival. Thank you. Unfortunately, as we saw with the October 7th terrorist attack and the war that followed, the film could not be more relevant today. We saw the same children being used as human shields, being recruited as child soldiers, and we all watched in absolute horror as Hamas invited Palestinian children on stage to dance next to the coffins of the dead Bibas family. What could be more repulsive than children celebrating the murder of other children? What I learned in the 2 years that I spent filming in the Palestinian Authority territories is that no child is born with Jew hatred in their hearts. In fact, antisemitism is taught. It is indoctrinated. And it ruins the future, not just of that child, but of the community engaged in that type of child abuse. So fast forward to today, instead of using film to expose Jew hatred, what I do now is use the law to combat it. I file lawsuits on behalf of Jewish people and Jewish companies who are discriminated against illegally. I am not a pro-Israel advocate. My job is not to make people love Israel. My job is to ensure there are consequences for illegal anti-Semitic discrimination. Bring these cases to courts of law around the world, set legal precedents that deter like behavior. And I am extremely fortunate to work with the best and the brightest legal minds, because for far too long, there has been no consequences for Jew hatred. But the good news is that that is changing. I represent students who are harassed and assaulted on campuses, Israeli businesses who are boycotted, Jewish doctors and nurses who are retaliated against. Each lawsuit has its own unique plaintiff. Each lawsuit has a different set of facts, but there is one common denominator to all of them. And that is that each and every one of my clients have been treated differently, have been harmed, have been victimized because they are Jewish. And no matter what the litany of excuses is, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just protesting Israel, or I don't hate Jews, I just hate Zionists, the result is the same. They are attacking Jewish people for being Jewish, and the so-called Israeli-Palestinian conflict is just the latest excuse. Now, up until now, the Jewish community has not organized any type of strategic legal offense. Enter the Lawfare Project. When San Francisco State University refused to allow Jewish students to have a table at a student fair, attempting to create a Zionist-free zone, we sued the university. And we entered into a groundbreaking settlement that required the California State University system to recognize that Zionism is an integral part of the Jewish identity of their students, and therefore anti-Zionist discrimination is not a political issue, it's a civil rights issue. When Kuwait Airways refused to carry Israeli passengers with Israeli passports, we sued the airline and we forced them to shut down over half of all of their flight paths, including all of their inter-European flight paths, as well as their flight from JFK to London, because they would rather lose millions of dollars than fly Israelis. When a restaurant owner in Toronto defamed a former IDF soldier, called him a terrorist, we sued her for defamation, and she was found liable, and she was forced to pay thousands of dollars worth of damages. When a Jewish man was viciously assaulted on the streets of New York, he retained the Lawfare Project. The assailant was arrested. He was tried and convicted of a hate crime, of conspiracy to commit a hate crime, and he was sentenced to over 1.5 years in jail. And when the National Lawyers Guild instituted or attempted to institute a boycott of Israeli companies, we sued them on behalf of an Israeli company. We forced them to reverse their discriminatory boycott policy, and we forced them to do business with our client. Because if you slander a Jew, if you attack a Jew, if you discriminate, harass, or retaliate against a Jew, there will be legal consequences. But that is in no way the end of the story. Because in order to have a successful civil rights movement, you need more than litigation. You need grassroots mobilization. We need to change the culture. And that is why I founded the End Jew Hatred movement, which is the first ever Jewish civil rights grassroots movement in modern time. Because we live in an age of minority rights movements. And the Jewish community is the oldest, most persecuted minority community in human history. And it's not the same to be black or to be gay or to be a woman as it was 10, 15 years ago. Why is it still socially acceptable to engage in Jew hatred? And while the Jewish community has marched for others, Jews have marched for black rights, Jews have marched for women's rights, for gay rights, for Asian rights. Where is the Jewish marching for Jewish rights? The time is now for a Jewish civil rights movement. And that is why my team and I have mobilized thousands of activists around the world to engage in grassroots mobilization, to host protests and direct actions, not only to call out anti-Semitism, but to demand accountability. When Zoom was scheduled to host a PFLP terrorist, Layla Khaled, on its platform, we sent Zoom a lawyer's letter warning that if they hosted a member of a designated terrorist group, they would not only be in violation of material support for terrorism laws, but we sent over 100 activists to the Zoom headquarters in San Francisco. And Zoom, as a result, deplatformed Layla Khaled. They took her off Zoom, and then Facebook, and then YouTube followed. That is the power of grassroots mobilization. Thank you. When Ben & Jerry's ice cream attempted to boycott Israel, we sent dozens of activists to the flagship store of Ben & Jerry's ice cream in New York, and we forced them to shut down their store for the day, losing revenue because there will be consequences for Jew hatred. Our activists have succeeded in getting over a dozen US states to declare April 29th as End Jew Hatred Day. They have forced the resignation of anti-Jewish professors at schools, and they canceled anti-Jewish curricula. Because when we are united as a community, when we mobilize, when we stand up for ourselves in courts of law, and we demand consequences for anti-Semitism, we can move mountains. But when we are divided, whether it's on religious lines or political partisan lines, when we have our heads in the sand, when we appease anti-Semitism, the cancer grows. History has proven that to be true. So what can you do? Well, first of all, everybody should take out their phones, go on social media, go on Instagram, and follow the End Jew Hatred movement. Because if you believe in ending Jew hatred, you are already part of the movement. If you are a student, reclaim your space. Become an End Jew Hatred Fellow on your campus. Don't be afraid to speak the truth. Host events that talk about and warn about the threat of theologically motivated radicalism and terrorism, and the threat that that poses not just to Israel, but to all Western democracies. Propose a resolution in your student government demanding the recognition that Jews are indigenous to Judea. And if you are retaliated against, stand up for yourself. Do not be afraid. There is more to be afraid of doing nothing than there is standing up for yourself. And if you are retaliated, if you are harassed or discriminated against, call us. We will protect you. We will provide pro bono legal support for you. If you are a lawyer, sign up for our legal network. dedicate some of your time to work on these cases pro bono and join us in court to fight for the civil rights of the Jewish community. If you are a mother, if you are a father, if you are a Jewish activist or an ally, start a chapter of the End Jew Hatred movement in your city. We will provide you with funding. We will provide you with legal support and with strategic guidance so that you can mobilize for the change that you want to see. And if you are a philanthropist, consider investing not just in Israel, but in the Jewish community in the diaspora. Consider investing in impact litigation. The metrics are real. The return on investment is real. Invest in the Jewish civil rights movement, because I'm telling you now that ending Jew hatred is the civil rights issue of our lifetime. Now, I know that if we follow the same playbook as every other civil rights, minority rights movement, with a combination of impact litigation and grassroots mobilization, we will together be able to end Jew hatred in our lifetime. Thank you for having me. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Brooke. Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you.
This is for you.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoy. Una foto. A picture, please. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Enjoy Mexico.